Hello everyone, this is General Hand Grenade. Welcome to my war room in Prince George, British Columbia. This is my third video in this little series here on Jonathan Mayer's France First strategy. Trying to find a way for the Central Powers to win this game because I've never seen it happen before. And I've seen Jonathan Mayer's video on his YouTube channel, and I encourage you to go check that out. I ran this the first two turns, and you might have seen those two videos already, but it didn't work out so well. So I thought, what if I'd taken less units here for the Austrians on turn number 2 and more units down there? So what would have happened then? And I ran it a bunch of times because I was able to take this with overwhelming odds, but the thing is, I didn't know at the time who was going to get air superiority. As it turned out, the Austrians got the air superiority. They took out the French fighter in Switzerland. There was no way of knowing before I moved the troops in there if that was going to happen, but it did. So let's assume that you guessed right and thought that was going to happen. And then on the Germans, the German second turn, they came down to Burgundy, or was it France came back? I can't remember. But anyway, the French, when the French and the Germans squared off here in Burgundy, there was the Germans actually hit France more times than you'd think that they would have. Like, it was better than the average roll. So the Austrians would have had to have guessed that when they were going in here, because they needed enough troops on the third turn to go into here. So let's say that you guessed that properly, and you had enough to go in here. And again, I ran this a bunch of times. They barely got the French out with, and you see what they have left here, the Austrians. And they needed to do that. They had to take Burgundy. The whole strategy hinged on that, because the Germans had a fighter and infantry and an artillery here, and they needed to take those to Marseille in order to put France into economic collapse on the was it second or third turn? I guess it would have been third turn. They needed to put France in economic collapse. And so the Austrians had to take this. And so I was able to take off 2 infantry and 2 artillery on the attack on Switzerland and divert them down here. And this is how it shook out. But of course, if I was going to do that, and like I said, I've done this I don't know how many times. I've been here all morning and moving things around. Okay, what if this, what if that, what if this, what if that? And I might have made a mistake or two, I'm not sure, because when you're moving things around, I kept going back to my video, and how many guys were on there to begin with, and I think I got it right, but I might have made a mistake or two, and if I did, then forgive me. But I got it to the point where, okay, this is the end of the third turn, and this is as well as I could do. And bear in mind, again, like I've done this a number of times, so if it didn't work out, then I went and did it again and again, because I wanted to see the strategy work. I wanted to see if there was a way that you could do it, that it would work. So this is the end of the third turn, and as you can see, they are going to be able to take Paris on the fourth turn, when the Austrians could attack them if they'd like, but I think it would be better for the Austrians to go back this way and take Venice with these guys, right, on the fourth turn. So it's up to the Germans, and they've got more than enough, but I think they're going to have to take most of them, because that's there's 8 units in here, and they've got a lot more units in here than they do, plus they have air superiority. So if they take enough units, they're going to be able to take it. Now, if I'd done it this way, then of course all my other moves are different. Like here, you can see in the last scenario on round 2, there was a bunch of boats in here. Well, if this was going to happen this way, then I wouldn't have done it the way I did. Instead of bringing the French cruiser and dude up, I brought him down here instead. No, I brought him down here to Piedmont instead. So that's why you see the German units down there. The German units had to go and take Piedmont, and that's why you see the cruiser and the transport. Now they went down to Transjordan and picked up the infantry and the artillery, and they put them in Piedmont, and then the Germans had to go down and take Piedmont from them. So they didn't bring it up here. But the French boats were here to begin with. And so the British loaded up on the second turn onto the boats. And then the French boats came down, and then on the third turn, and then the British unloaded on the third turn. Geez, I think I might have screwed that up. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Like they were in economic collapse. This might have been a fourth turn move. That's what I mean when I say I'm not sure if I did it right, because you start doing these things and then you get a turn ahead of yourself with one of the moves, right? I might not have been able to do that, but that would have been the next turn that the British would have come down here. I'm not certain. But anyway, on the fourth turn, like this is the end of the third turn, on the fourth turn, this is what America would have had. They would have been coming across with 5 transports, 5 infantry, and 5 artillery, and that Russian cruiser would have come up here. So there would have been more than enough to protect these boats, because you would have had 2 battleships and 2 cruisers in there. And then on the next turn, I had bought more than enough ground units as well, so that you could buy 2 more transports, and then enough to bring and 2 more artillery. So you would have had enough to bring 2 dudes and 2 artillery back. And then after that, they didn't need any more transports. I think they would have been going 3 transports every turn with 3 infantry and 3 artillery. But the game wouldn't have lasted that long. Like they probably would have had 2 landings. So they could have landed 10 in on this turn, on the fourth turn, and then 4 in on the next turn. So that would have brought the Germans down quite a bit. So that's not a problem though in France, or well, I mean, it's I can't say it's not a problem. Like everything had to go well to do that. You had I said I had to run that a number of times to get it right. So let's say you guessed right on the first time. Okay, you could get Paris, but you see, like this is how it's shaken down at the end of the third round on the Eastern Front. So Germany was able to get their territories back here, but Galicia has fallen. And of course, Russia's going to get to go before the Germans, so they can do some damage to the Germans. I mean, they could attack Vienna if they wanted to, right? I don't think they'd get it though. No, they wouldn't get it because that's not a blue chip. So, but they could attack Vienna with air superiority if they wanted to, because they were able to take the Germans out. Remember, the Germans were cut off here, and so they could do that. And they've got a number of units here as well, because they were able to collect a lot of money on the last turn. And they've collected a lot on this turn as well. The Romanians the Ottoman Empire had come up here and attacked these guys, but these guys were able to take them out pretty easily. But anyway, these guys are in economic collapse, the Austrians. So beginning this turn, they do not get to purchase anything because they are in economic collapse. So that's part of the problem that that they have. And the other part of the problem is this: is getting Rome. You could divert some of your German forces down there after they take Paris, and you could bring some down from Germany. But then you got the Russians coming in, right? You got the Russians coming in on Germany over there, and in on Austria, and you've got the Americans coming, and then they could take Paris back, right? So because these guys can't advance forward this turn, they have to attack this, and then so they should be able to take out those 3 units, but these guys move up then, right? So then they've got another turn of purchasing, and they have 19 IPCs again, so they would have bought the same thing on the next turn, right? So they couldn't have gotten Rome this turn. They can't get it next turn, and probably not the turn after, because another thing that I've done is the British boats that were over here. I loaded up the 2 transports and I brought them over to Egypt, and that was a good move for 2 reasons. One, because Africa was open to the Ottomans, and the Ottomans had more units than this here. But so I brought the 4 units up here, the two artillery and the 2 dudes. So that dissuaded the Ottomans from attacking that because they needed everything they had to go back and get Mesopotamia over there. The reason they were able to get it back was because they were able to take a couple of units from Transjordan. I think they took 3 units from there, plus the units from Constantinople, and they were able to take it back. So if they were to go after these guys instead, then they would have taken a lot of their units off that they might not have got Mesopotamia back, and then their units would have been out of position. Sure, they could run down here and get some more money and everything, but then they're getting steamrolled by the British over here. And so what good is the money if you go into economic collapse, right? And these guys are doing really, really well. I mean, they've got all their territories right now, and it's the end of the third turn. Usually I have these guys in economic collapse by now, or almost in economic collapse, one or the other. But anyway, so the second thing that this did with these boats here, so now the next turn, those British boats can come to this sea zone here, and they can drop off the 2 infantry and the 2 dudes either here or Piedmont, depending on what's going on, right? What has the Germans done? I guess, yeah, that I forgot about that. Yeah, so the Germans could come down here, couldn't they? Yeah, the Germans could come down there and put them in economic collapse. But then the British can come up here and take them. Remember, they have a battleship, and there's only 2 units here, so the British could take them out, and then they're not in economic collapse, right? So you see what I mean? There's so much going on. There's so many what ifs in here. So I don't think you can get the Italians in economic collapse this turn. I think you're going to be able to place units on them again. So it's kind of close, isn't it? I gotta say, I think that if I ever have to play the Central Powers, and I don't know, like I prefer to play Global 40. It's I just thought I'd take this board out because I had the time on my hands right now. But if I played at night and if I was playing the Central Powers against somebody, I think I would do that. I think I would do the Paris first strategy, because after running it a bunch of times, I can see that it's close. It's the closest I've seen the Central Powers to winning a game, and they might win it. Like they will be able to take that. They might be able to take that. But I think that's the only way they could ever win this game. Because over here in Russia, if you were to storm Russia, and you could do it, you could bring the Austrians and the Germans over to Russia, and of course the Austrians would be going after the Italians. But even after you do that, even after you get Moscow, if you get Moscow, you still have to go get Paris, because you can't win the game without getting Paris, right? You have to have Paris as one of the capitals that you take. So it only makes sense that Paris has to be the capital that you go for. So it's got to be France first. And then the easiest one is Rome, because Rome is on the way there. It's just, you're going to have really, really good luck doing it. And when I say luck, I mean rolling. You've got to be really sharp in your strategy. You got to use your units absolutely perfectly. And you have to have good luck rolling. I don't think you can do it if the rolls are even. Like if you're just moving things around and say, okay, the average is this, and so you take this guy off and you take this guy off, and I don't think you can do it. Not the way, not because like if you could do it if it was just you against the Germans and the Austrians against the Italians and the French. But the thing is, you've also got the Russians, right? So the Russians are going to get you in economic collapse. And you've got the British. The British can send up some help like I just described now. And then you've got the Americans coming over. So getting France, yes, you can do that. But getting Rome is a different story. That might be where it breaks down. And I gotta say, I mentioned this in the last video, that I made a video first and I screwed up because I was trying to do Jonathan's strategy, but I had moved units in from Alsace to Lorraine, and that wasn't part of the plan. The plan was to divert units to Switzerland and to Belgium, and then to move more units up to Alsace, and then to take Lorraine on the following turn. I think it worked out better taking Lorraine first. And the reason is because then with the French having Lorraine and Burgundy, they were able to concentrate on Switzerland. Like I know as the Allied player that if they ever take Switzerland like that, then that's where I want to go, because first of all, they're threatening Burgundy here, which is much bigger harm to the French. But also, they're threatening Italy down here, and so I'm going to go to Switzerland before I go to Alsace or before I go to Belgium. I'm definitely going to Switzerland if I'm going to attack, and I like to counterattack. I think you got to go after them as the Allied player. And so I had many more units to go after Switzerland. Instead of having 6 infantry and 2 artillery, I had access to 12 infantry and 4 artillery. And then there was the fighter as well. But I think what I did was I took in 10 infantry and 4 artillery. And so I was able to take Switzerland with enough units that they had to bring that many units as the Austrian player in order to take that and to move on and take Burgundy. They couldn't have done it without bringing that many units, minus the 2 and 2 that I've changed for this video, and that made a difference in how many units that the Austrians had to go at. You can see, like, if they could have gone down here with more, then that would have made the difference, perhaps, right? You still could have gotten Paris, but you could have also maybe gotten Rome. So maybe taking Lorraine is the right thing to do on the first turn. But I don't know. Like, that's something that you're going to have to play around with if you're going to try this strategy. So, yeah, because look at it in the third turn. If you're running away like they did over there, you're moving all your units off. I was able to get them in economic collapse in 3 turns. The Austrians I'm talking about here. So you know, you got to be doing better than this after 3 turns. You got to be closer to Rome. You're close enough over here, but you're not close enough down there. Anyway, I don't know what much more to say about this. I need to take this board apart though, or like put everything away, because I have some people coming by later this week to play a game of Global 40, and I've got a bunch of other things to do, things that have nothing to do with playing games, and plus it's going to take me a long time to set it up, right? Because I got the old fat finger there, and so it's going to take me a while. I'm setting up the Global 40 board left-handed and one-handed, and that's going to take hours. So anyway, thank you, Jonathan, for coming forth with that strategy. I think it could work. I think you got to have some luck to do it, but I think it could work if it's done absolutely perfectly. And if you get the good luck rolls, I think it can work. But at the same time, you know what? I think it's probably 50-50 at best, because I think that, you know, like I might have been able to play the Allies better in this game too. I think that the Allied strategy was pretty good. Now that I've run it through once, though, I kind of know what I need to adjust, and so I might do it slightly different the next time, but not much though. I'd still do basically the same thing. I'd still try to get Austria before they could get Italy, because I think that's the key to stopping this. But I don't know, like I might try to put units in up here as the British player. I don't know, I'd do something different. But I don't think it's any better than 50-50, but that's a lot better than any other game I've seen the Central Powers before, because they haven't even been close. Half the games that I've played before, the Central Powers were losing the game before the Americans even got there. So, you know, and the times that they were winning or even, it was just barely, right? And then the Americans got there and turned the tide of the war, and then it was over within a few turns. But anyway, that's a story from here in Prince George, from the War Room. So if you're gonna play the Central Powers, then certainly give this France First strategy a try. I think that's your only chance of winning. And I tried a lot. I tried for days and days. I thought about it and moved things around, and I think it can work. So take care, everyone. General Hand Grenade out.